Hey everybody, welcome to day 55, where we are going to be talking about how to add coincidence into our stories without it sounding too cheesy or too contrived. So if you haven't hit that subscribe button below, go ahead and click it now, and whatever it is you're drinking today, grab a cup, cozy up, and let's get to writing. From Pixar itself, who says that coincidences to get characters into trouble are fine, but coincidences to get characters out of trouble are cheating. And we have touched on this before too, when we've talked about having the ending of the story and the climax and the resolution to our entire plot, how that cannot just be left up to coincidence, right? Because it needs to be the characters who solve the story in the end. But that doesn't mean that we can't start stories with coincidence, because a lot of times that is what sparks the story itself. So think of like the Parent Trap. You know, it starts with the two twins who have been separated at birth. They don't know that they have a twin sister. They coincidentally end up at the same summer camp and they find each other, and so they realize, oh, I have a twin sister now. The only reason there is a story is because of that coincidence that brought them together. So that is totally fine, but it would be a different story if the twins had been searching for each other their entire lives throughout the whole course of the book, and then it was solved at the end by them coincidentally ending up at the same summer camp. That would not be quite as awesome. And it is also perfectly fine to spark subplots with coincidence as well. So this would be like if you have four friends on a road trip across America, and the overall story is about their trip and the struggles that they face. But along the way, one of the characters realizes that another character is cheating on another character in this small group of people who's all traveling together. Maybe it's a coincidence they find it out. Maybe they happen to be on Tinder swiping and they see one of the people on there who shouldn't be on there. That can spark a subplot as well. It just can't be the solution to the plot. So it's very clear that we don't want coincidences to be the overall ending of the story and solve the main plot line. But I would actually go a step further and also say that we don't want coincidences to be the reason that your characters are finding their answers along the way. So we don't want our characters to stumble across the answers they need, or just happen to be in the right room at the right time to overhear who murdered the suspect. Those would be cheap coincidences. And so we want to find ways that we can either make those not a coincidence or make them not cheap. So one very easy way to overcome this and make those coincidences not so convenient is just to make them not coincidences. So whatever it is your character is supposed to stumble across, instead of having them just happen to be there at the right time, give them a tip ahead of time and have them actively pursue it. So if they're supposed to stumble across the bad guys as they're hatching their evil schemes, that's a little too convenient, right? Because then the main character knows exactly what's happening and knows how to thwart them. But if we really need to get that information across, give that character a tip that the bad guys are going to be talking about something evil, and then have a really cool scene where that character sneaks in to witness it and see what's going on. That little tiny alteration, having the character sneak in to overhear the bad guys' conversation, makes it less convenient and more believable instead of just having them happen across that conversation at the exact right time. And then the second way that I'd recommend to make it less of a coincidence is to build the result that you want. So what I mean by this is, if you look at Lord of the Rings, you know, you've got your one ring and Gollum has it, who is this freakishly possessive little creature who's going to be a lot of fun to read about and to watch in the movies, right? But what are the odds that that one freakishly possessive little creature would happen to be the one to find the ring? That would have been crazy. But it is much more believable that just somebody found the ring. You know, at some point someone was going to find it, and then it turned them into Gollum. So instead of having the perfectly right character for that story stumble across it at the perfectly right time and find it, it is far more believable that just a random average person found it, but then was turned into the character that we wanted to read about and who the author wanted to write for us. So this same kind of workaround for the coincidences is also used in Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. So the Chamber of Secrets can only be opened by somebody who can talk to snakes. And wouldn't it be so coincidental and so convenient if Harry Potter happened to be like the 1 in 10 million people who happened to be born with the ability to talk to snakes? Wouldn't that be nice? So since that would be way too freakishly coincidental, instead J.K. Rowling built that result into the story. So Harry Potter was born an average person, but when he was marked by Voldemort, that is when he became one of the people who was able to talk to snakes snakes because it is much more likely to believe that he was marked and got that power from Voldemort and now can talk to snakes than that he happened to be the one in I don't even know how many people who's born a parcel mouth and is able to talk to snakes, and it just happens to be the year that the Chamber of Secrets has been opened and that Harry Potter has to save the day. We overcome that way too convenient coincidence by building that result as part of the story. And there is one exception that I want to make to this whole rule of trying to cut down on the coincidences in stories, and that is that if your readers are rooting for this coincidence to happen, then go for it. So this would be like in Serendipity. You know, the title of the movie is already telling you it is about crazy coincidence, but it's two people who keep coincidentally meeting, and they know that they're meant to be together and they're supposed to fall in love, and so what they say is, if fate really wants us together, we'll let it decide. And so he writes his information on a $5 bill, and she writes her contact information on the inside of a book that is about to be sold. And they're like, if fate really wants us together, this $5 bill will end up in your hands and this book will somehow end up in mine. And so as an audience, you are rooting for those characters to find that book and find that $5 bill. I mean, what are the odds you would ever come across that $5 bill again? But because the watchers are rooting for it, and because the title of the film is Serendipity, you can totally get away with it in that sense because we want to see that crazy coincidence happen. This would also be in Game of Thrones, which actually the books in Game of Thrones have way less coincidences than the show, and I actually like the show better because of it. But the Stark family, really very close to the beginning of the series, pretty much gets split up and these kids all go their separate ways. But there is this moment where Jon Snow and Arya Stark, who are like this dynamic sibling duo, and we have been waiting for them to find each other for I don't know how many seasons. There's this moment where they are closing in, you can tell they are just about to cross paths, and there is so much anticipation for it that even though it would be total coincidence for them to cross paths, the readers, the watchers, everybody was totally rooting for it, and then they miss each other. And it was devastating. And so that's why I want to say that there is an absolute exception to this rule. Coincidences are fine if it is something that your readers and your watchers are already totally looking forward to. So that is all that I have to say for now about adding coincidence into our stories. Today is day 55, so we should have been at 40,008 words yesterday. I only wrote 768, so that put me at 38,917. So I'm gonna jump off and hit my word count for today. So if you haven't hit the subscribe button below, go ahead and click it now, and I will see you guys tomorrow for day 56 of the 60-day novel writing challenge.